enforcement at the Craighead County Jail. Spent 4 years working there. Worked in the juvenile detention center and in the adult side as well. Prior to that, I spent 4 years on active duty in the United States Coast Guard. And I'm still a reservist in the Coast Guard now. I do the NCIS version of the Coast Guard. So I've worked the highway for several years. I spent 12 years as a uniformed trooper. I worked Jackson County, Craighead County, Poinsett County. I pretty much worked all of northeast Arkansas. For the last 10 years, I've been in criminal investigations. And 9.5 of those 10 years, I've spent working narcotics. Usually I give these presentations and I ask the audience, how many of you have been affected by addiction? And what I've learned is, it's easier to ask, how many of you have not?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll tell you, like, my personal story. I've been affected by addiction. I have a sister who's 15 years younger than I am. And since I have been a trooper, she's become a fentanyl addict. So I have watched her disappear. I've grieved for her. I've watched the sister that I knew slowly slip away. So she's got a 10-year-old daughter, and I've watched that relationship deteriorate. I have a stepbrother. I have several cousins. So it doesn't discriminate. Every demographic of life is touched by addiction. A little more? Okay. I figured I was loud enough. So everybody at some point will be affected by addiction.
Yeah.
And it's tough to see. Working in narcotics, I've seen it from a personal level of dealing with individuals who have been under the influence. I've seen the separation of families, husbands and wives, fathers and daughters, fathers and sons, mothers and their children. And it's sad to see it. But that's the reality of the world that we live in. So to see y'all here today in this environment touches my heart. Because that's one of the reasons that I chose this profession, was to hopefully make a difference in at least one person's life. So it's not all about driving fast and arresting people. Do I take satisfaction in that? No. I would much rather prefer that I didn't have to be needed in that capacity.
Yeah.
So what I have seen throughout my career, we have a huge appetite in Arkansas for methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is our biggest drug that we have in the state of Arkansas.
Yeah.
Through the years, I have seen an influx of methamphetamine. It's shifted. When I was young and starting out in my career, it was we referred to as beating the bucket. And you would have the manufacturing labs here locally. You would have people peeling matchbooks and popping blister packs and stealing anhydrous ammonia from farmers.
Yeah.
Well, through the years, that's transitioned. And we've had an influx of what we refer to in narcotics as Mexican meth. It comes in from the Sinaloa cartels and the Jalisco New Generation and all the different factions. And when that occurred, it changed the way things operated for us. So before, everybody's been out to eat. You've seen a sugar packet?
Yeah.
A sugar packet's roughly 1 gram.
Yeah.
So here in Arkansas, especially in this area, a gram of methamphetamine, when I started, was $100. That's what you would pay. So methamphetamine, the reason that it's so potent, it affects your dopamine receptors.
Yeah.
So when you ingest methamphetamine, there's a little receptor inside your brain and it blocks it. It allows for a free flow of norepinephrine and epinephrine. That's why you get that euphoric feeling of happiness, and you get that rush, and you get that sensation of feeling rejuvenated and energetic.
Yeah.
And that'll last for anywhere from 12 to 24 hours, which is why it's prevalent. Cocaine is not as prevalent here. Cocaine is going to cost you about $50 a gram. So that same sugar packet is going to cost you $50. The difference is methamphetamine lasts you for 12 to 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas cocaine, the effects of that are going to last you 5 minutes to 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. So what we've seen is an influx of methamphetamine but we're starting to see more cocaine come into our area as well. The demographics for that are a little bit different. Cocaine is a predominantly more affluent drug, meaning that it's going to be a higher socioeconomic status. You're going to have money, because if you're spending $50 a gram for a high that only lasts you 5 to 90 minutes, you're going to need more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do we see that the most of? Anybody have a guess? Where? Casinos? Yeah. What about in our area here? Where do you think you would see it the most of? Yes, ma'am.
Buying and selling.
Well, yeah, farmers. Buying it, what'd you say?
Buying and selling.
Yeah, and college. College. The fraternities, the sororities. You see a lot of it there, right? The methamphetamine, it doesn't discriminate either. Like, I've seen people with money, and I've seen people that have nothing. It doesn't discriminate.
Wow.
So what we're starting to see now, Arkansas has always had an appetite for pharmaceuticals as well. Like, you get hurt, you have surgery, they give you hydrocodone. The biggest lie that the United States was ever told was that OxyContin wasn't addictive. That's the biggest lie we've ever been told.
Right.
Because it's extremely potent and it's extremely addictive. And when you start to take those medications to alleviate your pain, you develop a dependency for it. So that when you stop taking it, you go through painful withdrawals. You get sick. So what do? We go to the street and we look for it. Well, that's where our danger comes now. Because now we've got a drug, and it's no secret anymore that fentanyl is readily available. And it's here, and it's killing people. Not only am I a law enforcement officer, but I'm also a paramedic. So I see the effects of people who have overdosed and try to resuscitate them. So the way that works, fentanyl is an opioid. Most of your pain medications are either opioids or opioid derivatives. They either come from opium or it's a synthetic opium. What you get from Big Pharma goes through a quality control assurance process. So all the precursors that go into that drug, they're specifically down to the minute detail of how much each precursor goes into that drug so that it doesn't kill you. Because if Big Pharma's killing their patients, they're not doing themselves any good for their profit margin. Unfortunately, in the Sinaloas, we don't have quality control assurance. So the precursors that go in are different. It's not consistent. So when you go out and you think that you're purchasing a Xanax from the street, or you think you're getting some perks or M30s, the chances are, more than not, you're getting fentanyl. And what I may take one day will kill me the next day.
Yeah.
You think that you're taking a dosage, and it might be a therapeutic level dose where you think you can handle it and it'll give you a little bit of a buzz, but then it's going to kill you. And that's what we're seeing. And it's not a pleasant death. Because essentially what happens is when you take a narcotic analgesic, your blood pressure drops, your heart rate drops, and then eventually your respirations drop. A normal person will breathe anywhere from 12 to 20 times per minute. So anything less than that, we're not getting the oxygen that we need to our brain. We're not getting the oxygen that we need to our organs, to our tissues. So as we start to diminish our breaths, we start losing that oxygen, and eventually we lose consciousness. And if I'm not awake to be able to tell you that I need help, that's the end of it. And for some reason, I don't know why, we typically find them naked in the bathroom. Like, is that really the last place that you want to be found? Like, I don't want that to be how I go, naked in the bathroom. That's not my decision that I would want to make there. So what we're seeing is not only is methamphetamine and cocaine, it's everything. Especially in Jonesboro, we have psilocybin mushrooms, which are hallucinogenic. We have THC now that is through the roof. It's not the old Reggie Street weed that you used to see from the 70s and 80s. The stuff that they have now has an extremely high THC content. And people say, well, I need it for anxiety. Well, if you start looking at the studies, it actually shows that an increased use of marijuana actually increases your anxiety level now because of the THC level. So it's not the same as what it used to be. It's like, oh, well, I can take a hit and this will bring me down and calm me down. Now, it's causing adverse reactions. And believe it or not, like some people will look at me like I'm stupid when I say this. Marijuana is the most deadly drug that we have in this city. And I'll tell you why. You can't take the money that you made from selling marijuana and deposit it into the bank without raising red flags. They're going to know that you're selling marijuana. And that bank is going to make a note of that. So what do? We hang on to our money. Well, we live our lives on social media now, especially the younger generation. So what do we like to do when we're rolling heavy? We like the money flash. We show how much money we have and we put it all over social media that I'm rolling. I'm living good right now. Well, if they know that I'm selling marijuana and they know that I have large amounts of cash on house, what do you think is going to happen to me about 2 o'clock in the morning? Yeah, I'm a target. And that's why I say marijuana is one of the most deadly drugs. The homicides that we have here in Jonesboro, a lot of them are attributed to marijuana and the cash that's on hand. Like that. Plain and simple, baseline reality. A lot of people will argue with me and say that that's not right. That's experience. I've lived this life. I see it. To see y'all in here in this environment, that one touches me as well. Faith is a big part of who I am and a big part of what has gotten me through every trial and tribulation that I've ever faced in life. So what I have seen from personal experience is that rehab is not effective. If I just say, I'm in trouble right now, I'm looking at going to prison, I need rehab. No, you don't. You need to go to jail. Until you make the decision in your heart and in your mind that this is a lifestyle change, that I no longer want to be a part of this life, you're going to fall back into that cycle of addiction. Because you're going to stay within those circles. I interviewed a young lady in Paragould one time, and it touched my heart in such a profound way. She's an attractive young girl, and you could tell that she's lived a hard life. And I asked her, why? You're an articulate young lady. I can tell that you're intelligent. You're a beautiful young lady. Why did you choose this lifestyle? And she told me, Billy, it's hard here. In Paragould, people will give you a gram of dope before they would give you a sandwich if you were hungry. And that touched my heart. I was like, there's probably a genuine reality to that. That is her world. But when you surround yourself in these environments, the people who will invest in you, you're going to see that you're worth it. That you're worth more than that pattern of addiction. Mm-hmm. You're going to see that you have a life that's ready to be lived. You're going to have people there who will give you a hand up, not a handout. Yeah. And that's something that you have to be willing to be humble enough to say, I'm not strong enough to do this on my own. So when I say that rehab is not effective, there's a caveat to that. It's not effective until you're ready to accept that gift and an opportunity for a new life. Because if you don't, you're going to fall back right into that same crowd, and you're going to fall right back into that cycle of addiction. And I've seen it too many times. I have dealt with people who got clean, who lived a life of sobriety, and then life happened. Yeah. And instead of falling back on that group that invested in them, they fell back on what they knew previously. And just one little taste of what they were addicted to, be it alcohol, methamphetamine, benzodiazepines, if it was fentanyl or other opiates, just one taste brings them right back into that cycle. And then I wind up dealing with them again. And I ask them, man, what happened? They fell right back into that pattern. because they chose to surround themselves with people who constantly would draw from them and take from them rather than invest in them. So those are kind of my experiences with what I have seen from a professional level and a personal level. And I've tried to explain that to my sister. She's 15 years younger than I am. And she's hard-headed. Boy, she's hard-headed. Like we're Hispanic, and she's Hispanic Indian. And that Indian comes out, and it's a challenge for me sometimes. Like we butt heads, and we don't see eye to eye. And it's hard for me to talk to her and communicate to her that I have her best interest, but at the same time, let her know that I don't play that game. You can't manipulate me.
Yeah.
I've seen this. I've lived this life. You can't bring that into my house.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, I'm not going to be a part of it. And it's tough. She's incarcerated right now, and she's looking at a couple years in prison. I did get a good report that she was baptized while she was in jail.
Praise the Lord.
And my hope is that she will continue to study and learn and accept that grace. And here's the most powerful one. It's forgiveness.
Yes.
You know, I don't usually bring my religion into it, but this is my personal experience. That forgiveness is your pathway to success.
Yeah.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he loved me enough to forgive me of my sins, then why shouldn't I follow that example?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't I forgive myself?
Yes.
Right? And I have to remind myself of that, and I remind my children and those that are closest to me that forgiveness is a gift that is given to us, but it's also an act that we have to be willing to accept, and we have to show for ourselves so that we can learn to love ourselves. And that has been that's been my observation of what the key to success is to beating any addiction, regardless if it's narcotics, if it's alcohol, if it's pornography, if it's misogyny, whatever it is. You have to forgive yourself, learn to love yourself, so that you know how to love others. Y'all have any questions for me about my experiences on the highway or in investigations? Yes, ma'am.
What is the rate of suicide with people that do the fentanyl?
Well, it's not necessarily that they have the intention of committing suicide. It's just a byproduct of their choice. So every drug has something that's called a half-life. It doesn't matter if it's Tylenol, ibuprofen, or what it is. So when they tell you that if you're running fever or your child is sick, how often do they tell you to take Tylenol or ibuprofen? Every 4 to 6 hours, right? So that's how long it takes for that drug to metabolize out of your system. It takes 4 to 6 hours. Well, when you're taking fentanyl or you're taking any other opiate, half of that drug remains in your system. You may not be feeling the effects of it anymore, but that drug is still in your system, the residual amounts of it. So when the high wears off and I'm craving more, I take more. Instead of taking 1 unit, now essentially I've got 1.5 in my system. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that 1 unit, that might be survivable, but when I take 1.5, my chances of overdosing have increased dramatically. And that's what happens. That highs run off, I need more, I take it, my blood pressure has already decreased, my respirations begin to decrease even further, and I'm no longer perfusing oxygen throughout the body like I need to. And that's when eventually I stop breathing, I quit getting oxygen to the heart, the lungs, the vital organs that I need, and I just go into cardiac arrest and slip away. So it's unfortunate. I don't think that they have the intention of committing suicide. It's just a byproduct of their choice. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, ma'am?
What about the guilt? How do you tell people to, cope with the guilt of mistakes they've made in the past?
How do you deal with the guilt? Grace and forgiveness. I mean, any time that I've ever failed in life, or I have fallen short of what my intentions were, I always take a moment and I reflect. How did I get to where I am? And I've had people in the car with me many times. When I worked the highway, I didn't have a cage. So they sat in the passenger seat right beside me. And I would tell them, as I arrested them, hey, listen, I'm going to put you in the front seat. I'm going to put your seatbelt on you. If you want to listen to country music, let me know. We'll put it on country. You want to listen to rap music, we'll listen to rap. If you want the windows rolled down, you let me know. I'll treat you as good as you let me. But don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Mm-hmm. And as we get in the vehicle and we talk, I ask them, how did you get here? Like, what put you on the path? And some of the stories that I've heard are heartbreaking. You know, child sexual assault, or introduction to narcotics from family members, or introduction to it at a young age. And all of these things, some of those decisions weren't theirs to make. They didn't ask to become victims, but you have to assure them it wasn't their fault. But what you do from here on, you have accountability for. Yeah. You own this moment from here forward. So that's always been my advice to people, is to be responsible or be held accountable. Because we're all going to be called to judgment one day. Yes. You can be responsible for your actions now, or you can be held accountable for them at a later time. Jesus. And that's kind of my job as a law enforcement officer. Like, you mess up, it's nothing personal, but I'm coming for you. And especially those who deal, like users, I hate to see somebody go to prison for a gram of dope. Sometimes that's what they need. But I hate to see that. However, these people who are out here preying upon addicts and selling drugs to those that they know they're addicted, I don't have them. Sorry, buddy. You know, this is the life you chose. You're ruining these lives, taking advantage over it, over easy money. The only problem with that easy money is eventually it's going to run out because there's no loyalty in that game. Yeah. If I'm selling you drugs and you get caught in possession of it, you going to prison for me? No. Most of the time what happens is somebody like me comes and sits down in this small little room with them, and we put down a piece of paper and we say, hey, look, this is how much time you're looking at going to prison for. You got two choices. You can go to jail, or you can give me the names of 3 people right now that you could go buy drugs from. And whether or not they buy drugs for me or not, I still have those 3 names, and I start watching them. And I learn everything possible that I can about that individual. Did that answer your question? I know it was long-winded.
So I guess you can save other people, but then whenever it has to do with you, I feel like it's accountability.
It is.
You're purchasing it. But,
you know, my dad was a firefighter paramedic, and I watched him. He was my hero, and he told me one time about him resuscitating his grandmother. And part of me was in awe that he was able to do that, and the other part of me was almost upset with him that he was able to do that. Like, how do you work on somebody that you're so close to and not be emotional in that time? Now, unfortunately, I had to learn that very thing with my dad. I had to resuscitate my dad a few times. But my dad probably gave me the best piece of advice that I've ever had professionally. You save the ones that you can, and you pray for the ones that you can't. Mm-hmm. And that little bit of prayer, you never know how powerful that prayer is. Because that one prayer might reach that person and help pull them from that addiction. Right? And that's always stayed with me, and that's always been my mentality. Is save the ones that you can and pray for the ones that you can. And I can't save anybody else unless I save myself first.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Oh, telltale signs for someone using. I always get people to laugh at me when I do this, because There's never been a time that you haven't gone to Come and Go or Easy Mart and you haven't seen this person.
Yeah.
Everybody has seen this person. This is called bruxism. When that jaw starts swinging back and forth like it's unhinged, that's called bruxism. It's a constant grinding of the teeth, and they get that wide-eyed look. That's usually a telltale sign that there's some type of stimulant on board. Sweating when they shouldn't be sweating, because a CNS stimulant, central nervous system stimulant, increases everything. Your heart rate, your respirations, your blood pressure, you're hyperthermic, meaning that you're hot, your body's metabolizing at a quick rate.
Yeah.
That's why you see a lot of methamphetamine addicts who are very thin, because it's an appetite suppressant. Adderall, Strattera, Ritalin, those are all amphetamines. Who do you think would abuse those? What demographic of people do you think would abuse ADD meds? College kids. When does that happen? Finals week. Finals week. So we start seeing that super hyper fidgety kid. Hey, buddy. And the bad part is that college kid who's 18, 19 years old and is stressed out because it's finals week and they've taken on a heavy load. What they don't realize is that when they run down to Come and Go to get a coffee and some cookies or whatever, and they get pulled over by the police, and the police find a pill bottle that doesn't have a prescription label on it, and it's got 3 Adderall in it, guess what? That's a felony. It's the same as having a gram of methamphetamine.
Wow.
That's the way the law looks at it. So that kid has potentially thrown his life away over studying for those exams. Now, the other signs that you look for are people that we call them zombies. And it's called on the nod. And you can be in a gas station and see this person too. And that's what they look like. It looks like they're just constantly about to fall asleep. And when you see that person, you know, if anybody goes to New Orleans, you will see the zombies everywhere. They'll be sitting on a park bench and they'll fall over. In St. Louis ate up with it. There's another drug that they mix with fentanyl. It's called Trank. Whew, it's horrible. It's a veterinarian benzodiazepine. It's called xylazine. So the benzodiazepines work similarly to what the opiates do. They're depressants, so they knock your respiratory down. Well, when you take an opiate like fentanyl, I can give you Narcan to bring you out of your overdose. And that's why there's a big push for people being given Narcan. Like, you can go to the pharmacies and buy it cheap, or you can go to the health department. You squirt it up in their nose. Well, when they're taking Trank, the fentanyl is counteracted by the Narcan, but the xylazine is not. So there's still a chance that they're going to stop breathing because they've taken that benzodiazepine. And believe it or not, if you take too much Xanax, it's going to do the same thing to you. So you're going to have the people that are extremely hyper, and then you're going to have the people that look like they're ready to crash. And what I have seen is that most people are what we refer to as poly drug users. So if I'm taking methamphetamine, I hit that high, and I'm just geeked out, and I can't calm down, I'm going to have to take Xanax to help me mellow out a little bit. Or I'm going to have to smoke weed to help me mellow out a little bit. So when, as a trooper, I get behind that person, and they're all over the road, and I get them out of the vehicle to do a DWI investigation, I know right off the bat that person's a poly drug user, because I can just see the symptoms inside of them. And a lot of times it's something as simple as looking in their eyes. You know, that old, the eyes are the window to the soul. You can tell when they're glassed over pretty good. So, yes, ma'am.
Now, if you get a prescription for pain reliever at the pharmacy, they give you a Norcal.
Yeah.
If you have overdosed, are you coherent enough to
No.
use that?
No. And that's, unfortunately, I had a friend who was a paramedic who was addicted to morphine. and he was stealing it. You know, anytime he got a chance to be around it, he would steal it. And he had Narcan back before Narcan was real prevalent through the nasal. And I asked him, buddy, what were you going to do? You going to give yourself an IV injection after you already passed out? But there's no consciousness of common sense. It doesn't exist when they're in that state, in that condition. Yes, sir.
What do you think the success rate of Narcan being used is saving lives?
A lot. So here's the problems with Narcan. Narcan is an intranasal spray more often than not. They do have an auto-injector similar to the epinephrine pen where you can stab it in someone's thigh. But it's almost like an Afrin, right? It's an aerosolized spray. So it comes in a 4 milligram dosage. There will never be a time as a paramedic that I'm going to give someone overdosing 4 milligrams of Narcan. Because one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to throw up on me or they're going to wake up swinging. Only two things that happen. They're either going to throw up on me or they're going to wake up swinging. Because it's not cheap. Like one pill, it's going to cost you about $20 for a pill. So the Narcan that we have that's available to us, if they're still breathing, it's effective. If they're only breathing 4 times a minute or less, probably not so much. When we breathe off of negative pressure, right? So when I take a breath, I'm bringing in the air from the atmosphere. It's drawing it in. That's a negative pressure, right? Well, if I'm not breathing, I'm not drinking that oxygen down into the little sacs inside of the lung called the alveoli. That's where the oxygen exchange happens. So in order to get that drug down into the alveoli so that I can get it into the bloodstream, they have to be breathing. So it's important, if you're going to carry Narcan, keep a CPR mask around. Like just one of those little $7 Amazon CPR masks. Because, hey, look, I'm called upon to love you, but I don't love you enough to give mouth to mouth. This is not going to happen. I don't know where your mouth is. And you and I, our mustaches are going to link together, and that's just going to be really awkward. Right? So that's not going to happen. But now I keep a pocket mask with me. It's always in my vehicle. So I have one in my vehicle, in my patrol vehicle. There's always a CPR mask around. So it is successful. The thing about it says it's a 4 milligram dose, but the studies that I've seen is only about 2 milligrams get to you, which is good, because the reason I say I'm only going to give you 2 milligrams, I just want you to breathe. I'll let the hospital deal with you. Like, it's bad to say, but I'm going to let them nurses, they get paid a little more than I do, but I'm going to let them nurses deal with you. Right. There's like 6 of them, there's one of me.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
How is the heart doing when they read overdose? Is it like they're having a heart attack or just slowing?
Depends on the drug. Depends on the drug, yeah. So, our body likes to operate in what we call homeostasis, and that's our baseline. That's where we want to be. Well, when I introduce these drugs, some are acidic and some are basic. So it throws the pH level of our body off. So when I become acidic, that means that I'm starting to release acid into my body. My body doesn't like to be in an acidic state. So eventually, it's going to cause cardiac dysrhythmias, and it's going to throw me into a fatal rhythm where my heart will no longer function, especially with methamphetamine, because it's a stimulant, so it's going to speed things up, and I'm going to go into attack cardiac rhythm, and eventually my heart's going to get tired. What was your question, ma'am?
So how many milligrams is actually in the Narcan?
4 milligram in the intranasal spray. You're only going to receive about 2 milligrams of that. So, yes, ma'am.
Let's say you find somebody unconscious from overdosing. What would be the first thing you do? Would you do CPR or would you do that through their nasal?
What stage of overdose? If they're breathing, we're not doing CPR.
Okay.
Okay? If they're still breathing, even though it's shallow, I'm not going to do CPR. I'm going to get the Narcan. I'm going to try to assist them with the Narcan. If they're not breathing good enough, then I'm going to get my CPR mask and I'm going to do rescue breathing for them. And if you haven't taken a CPR class or anything like that, like I highly encourage you to take a CPR class. It's easy. Like I've taught my kids when they were young how to use tourniquets, how to use CPR. Like strongly encourage you to do that. And there are a lot of people that will come out in civic organizations to do that for you.
What if they didn't have Narcan available?
911 first and foremost, right? We want to get help coming to us. If you don't feel comfortable with doing CPR, at least roll them over into what is called a recovery position. Put them over on their left side, and that way the airway is protected. Okay, so we don't have the tongue falling back, and we don't have any expulsions. Like if they're, a lot of times with opiates, it causes the stomach to be upset, so we'll get some regurgitation. So put them in the recovery position. Yes, sir.
It sounds like to me that you have boundaries, which is good. We all need boundaries.
Yeah.
But it sounds like to me the law enforcement as a whole wants, is rooting for individuals to improve their lives.
Oh, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
the last thing that we want to see as law enforcement officers, the very last thing that we want to have to do is take life. Because if we're ever put in that situation, like that affects everybody for the rest of their lives, right? But we also we deal with the worst day of everyone else's life. Like people don't call us when they're having a good day.
Yeah.
They don't call us and like, hey, we got fresh cookies. Never happens. That's the firefighters.